Welcome to Wealth Matters Podcast, and I have Prefontaine with me today, and I'm actually wearing his shirt, Wicked Smart, even though I'm not smart. I work with smart people. I reach out to smart people. I learn from them. But at least we have another a smart person with me. Has been doing real estate for 20 plus years. He's been a real estate coach and has done hundreds of transactions on real estate with by himself as well as with his students. So I'm looking forward to this discussion. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks for having me, Alpesh.
And Chris, feel free to add because I don't think I did justice to your bio.
No, that's fine. I'll just give the high point. We operate buying and selling entities. When I say we, it's a family business. Myself, my son-in-law, Zach, my son, Nick, and a great support team. And we buy in 3 states around where we live. We'll talk about how we buy later. And then we do the exact same thing with students all around North America. So total, we do around 25 or 30 deals a month, all on what we call terms.
That's awesome. That's amazing. So, Chris, we understood what you do. Tell us something interesting about yourself, which we would not have, which we cannot even guess.
Which you would not guess. Well, I'll tell you what, something I haven't said on a show ever, but I used to ride more, but I ride a 6-foot unicycle, one.
Oh, wow. Wow, I only see people riding. I always thought
don't ask me why that came to mind.
Yeah, I always thought it's difficult. And 6 feet, wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'll have to see that video or picture soon.
I'll work on that. I'll work on producing that.
So why did you choose to be in real estate? And I ask this question because we always talk about real estate and everyone has some different answer. So I want to know what was your why?
Well, originally, it was because I grew up in a family business, not real estate related, but my father would build his own brick and mortar buildings, and then his own company would lease it back from him. So I learned what he was doing with that, understood what that, how cool that was. And then as far as why, staying in it all these years, it's never the same. I'm never bored with it. I can get bored easy, and if it was boring, I wouldn't be in it. It's just every single deal, even though we're in one niche, is always different, even though we do that many per month.
Oh, that's a great point. Actually, I did not think about it, but I get bored easily, and maybe that's why I'm doing real estate now. When it was IT, I was always like looking for something different, always challenging. And you are so right that even though you do something specific, every time you got to, because you are working with different seller, different buyer, right? So every time there are different challenges. So that's a great point. Do you remember your first deal? What was it? How was it? How did it come to you?
I do. I actually do. So I had a partner, and we found a home that abutted a golf course. And it was an oversized lot. So we were able to, there's a lot of moving parts here. We were able to buy the home, then subdivide the lot. So now there's 2 lots, one without a home on it. And then on that empty lot, we built a duplex. But in that town, in that county, you can sell off each side as separate deeds. So we sold 2 condos. Yeah, so it was a cool deal. And we built a home too. So that was a lot of moving parts at that time. And that was my very first deal. Then we kept the house for a while and just rented it.
So you seem like an adventurous kind, right? Doing that in your very first deal, buying a lot, subdividing, and then building a duplex, etc. That's amazing.
I was lucky to have some good partners, and be around people that did land and things like that. So you learn on the fly, as you know. That's the best way to learn.
No, that's very important. The best way to learn is to do it yourself, right?
Yeah.
And of course, find the right people. Have them around you or work with them.
Right.
So. And you mentioned on your terms, and I also read your book, Real Estate on Your Terms. What does real estate on your terms mean?
Yeah, it's good because a lot of people, there's different meanings and there's no wrong answer. But for us, it means we're not going to utilize banks. That means we're also never going to sign personally on a loan. I learned that the hard way after the '08 crash. We're not going to solicit investor money because all of those to me equals stress when the market changes. So we just don't do it.
Okay. That's a great point, and especially when you're on your terms means, from my understanding was bank is not involved, right? Because I'm dictating my terms.
Yeah, so it's lease purchase, owner financing, and then subject to existing loan financing.
Okay.
You don't need banks.
Got it. And we have had some experts talk about lease purchase and subject to as well, but we'll go in detail again on this episode. But when and how did you figure out this is a way to go?
The hard way. The '08 crash. I wrote about it in the book. You probably saw it. So when that happened, we had 22, 23 properties, all signed on personally, all had debt on them. So that's a major headache. And so we had to go through the next 3 or 4 years selling off, liquidating, letting them foreclose, short sales. That's a lot of headaches.
Right. Lots of paperwork, lots of calls.
Right. So we simply said this, Alpesh. Okay, we did that. If we're going to go back into real estate, what's going to be the operating procedure? So we have a box, and we're going to say what I said earlier: no signing, no investor money, no your own money, no loans. That's how we set it up. And the intent was to make it recession resistant. Obviously, not knowing COVID was coming, but it certainly does weather all storms. This niche, and as a result, you have a lot of people flocking to this niche of terms.
Interesting. So now let me ask you this. How do you find the seller and how do you convince them?
Yeah, everyone asks this. So, okay, I'll talk about how to find them, but let me give a teaser and say you don't convince anyone to do anything. And so I'll tell you how to do that. Yeah, everyone says that. Even our students when they're new say, how do you convince someone to do that?
Right.
So
exactly.
we find them by expired listings that didn't sell in the market conventionally.
Okay, that's a good one.
For sale by owners and for rent by owners.
Okay.
And then we do go one level, and if we don't have enough leads there or we want to diversify, we work with free and clear homes. So homes with no mortgages.
I see.
And our software just pulls those. So, and I'll talk about why later. And then how do we convince? So the same reason you would go to a doctor, an attorney, an auto body shop for your car is why or how we help sellers. So we're helping them solve either a challenge or get to a goal, right? That's all we're doing. So solve a challenge. They have too much debt. Solve a challenge. COVID happened. They want to sell off a house. Solve a challenge. They got a divorce. There's a problem there. It's whatever they're wrestling with, their motivation for selling. We want to fix that for them. And it doesn't mean it's always bad. Some of these free and clear sellers are owning homes 5, 6, $1 million, $2 million. They're not hurting in any means. They don't owe anything on it. They just want all the money and they can wait. So they'll go ahead and do a deal with us.
Got it. No, that's a great point. So let's say you find, can you just take us through the process that you found an expired listing? What do you do right at that point?
Sure. So let's say you're the expired listing.
Mm-hmm.
My conversation with you is simple. I noticed your home didn't sell. I have one question for you. If you got your price, I haven't seen your home yet, but if you got your price, hypothetically, are you open to doing that sale, that we'll purchase it on a lease purchase or owner financing? Now, the only person that this won't work for, we can eliminate it right away, and I tell the sellers, is someone that needs their money, if they have money in it, equity, needs that right away. If they can wait, or I can help them understand how they can wait, they'll always net more with us, for sure.
Got it. So can we do the dialogue? Like if you ask me, I just want to see how it works and show my...
So you're the seller.
Yes.
All right. And you're an expired listing, and let's give you some equity. Let's say you're not hurting, you just want your price.
Right. Yeah,
so let's say your house is
sell.
your house is worth 300 and you owe 250. Let's say that.
Okay.
All right. So I say, okay, so I've got one question, Alpesh. I see you are on for 300. And my question would be, if you got your price of 300, now I haven't seen your home yet, but just if you got your price, are you open to doing that with me and I'll buy it on a lease purchase or owner financing? Are you open to something like that?
Yeah, I would be, but what is lease purchase or subject to? What are you talking about?
Sure. So lease purchase is nothing more than a delayed cash sale. Here's how it works. You have, how much do you own the home? If I could ask roughly, just give me a round number.
Yeah, so I owe about $250,000.
250-ish, and you're on for about 3. Let's use round numbers. Here's how a lease purchase works. I'm going to guarantee you, after I see your home and make sure I'm okay with it, I'm going to guarantee you your $50,000 on or before, I'll use a term of 3 years, on or before 36 months. And at that time, I'm also going to pay off your loan. So what you're doing is you're locking in your home with certainty, and especially with all the chaos going on right now, that's a huge advantage.
Oh, I see. So basically, I'm not going to get any money right now, and I'll get it within 3 years. Is that how it works?
Exactly. Opposed to you selling, I saw you were on the market for 300. What did you think you were going to net after you paid the commission and negotiated with the buyers? What do you think you were going to net if you owe 250 and you're on for 3?
Yeah, I would say I would net maybe around 30K in my hand, right? Because I
Exactly.
pay like 6-7% to realtor. There will be closing cost, warranty. Sometimes you have to give the warranty to the buyer, homeowner,
Exactly.
right? So I'm guessing 30,000.
Yeah, so I can get you closer to 50 as long as
Oh,
you can
okay.
wait the 3 years.
Oh, okay. So it's like basically my 30,000 this kind of earning interest or something.
You bet. And I don't know where you could get 20 grand interest on 30 grand in the
Right.
next 3 years. Do you?
No, I don't. I haven't found anything other than if I can invest in marijuana somewhere.
I was going to say unless it's illegal. So then I'll come over and see your house and see what the numbers look like.
Okay, awesome. Oh, that was great. I just wanted to see how it feels. So this was a great. So once you find the buyer and then once you look at the property, do you go back on anything? Like let's say the property is in really bad, not bad condition, but you find some issues. So
Yeah, I
how
mean,
did?
just like any other deal. Like, okay, so that script would have been flip-flopped a little bit. I would have right at the gate said to you, how much do you think you'd net? And you gave an honest answer. Oh, I probably would get around 30. And so what I usually would do is say, I'll give you all of that. I'll guarantee it. Even though you didn't get it, I'll give you all of that. So I was being generous with the 50. But usually
Okay.
it's closer to whatever you thought you were going to net if you sold what you didn't. Now, you probably would have netted less, but yeah, sometimes we'll go back. Inspections if we want them, or just by the eye when I go look at it. It'll also depend. We didn't get into motivation, all that. It also depends on how
Right.
fast you have to go. Do you need me to start right away, or can I go find my buyer first? There's all kinds of nuances in there.
Okay, okay. So do they then ask you when you mentioned, oh, can I go and find the buyer first? So do they ask you, are you a wholesaler or a realtor? What's your stake in this process?
They usually ask that at the beginning because a lot of wholesalers are going to lowball the person,
Right,
and
yes.
realtors want a fee, and they were just on the market, so they usually ask that right away. And I say, no, I'm a buyer. I'm not a realtor.
Okay, okay.
And yeah, we usually pay fair market value. I'm not going to lowball you. They usually ask that. Sure. Now, if they say, what's your stake in this? How do you get paid? I don't understand.
Right, yeah, because when you mentioned finding buyer, right? Well, what do they think?
Yeah. So here's how this looks. I say to them, I am contractually going to be taking control of your home, equitable interest. And as such, because they'll say, how do you make money? I'll say, number one, I'm going to create a spread between what your mortgage is that I'm going to take care of and what I'm charging my buyer who needs time to get a mortgage. And then I'm going to make some profit on the back end. But remember, Alpesh, when I told you as the seller, I'm going to pay off your mortgage at the end, it's not 250 at the end, right? It's lower than 250.
Right.
That benefits to me because you're getting your 50. So I'm going to benefit from the principal pay down too during the process.
Right, okay. No, that makes sense. So now let's talk about you have the seller, he agreed. Now what do you do to find the buyer? What's the process?
Yep. That's actually the easy part, believe it or not. The seller is a tougher part.
Right, yeah, you got to find the property, right? That's the tough
Yeah,
part. Yes, and
definitely tougher. The reason the buyer side is easier is this. Even before COVID, in any given market, your buyer pool, 60 to 80% of them could not get financing in their current state. They might just need 6 months, they might need 2 years, whatever they might need for time. They need credit enhancement, they need time to save. Now with COVID, that number is pushed way, way up. So the buyer pool is enormous, and we do all of that online.
That's interesting. And those buyers, why would they want to do this? Of course, I know a lot of time it's the bad credit, but is there anything else?
During COVID, like I just had one recently. I think real examples are the best. So we have a student in Colorado. He has a house for 135. And immediately upon putting it on, he put on an agreement for a lease purchase, not owner financing. And so immediately putting it on for a rent-to-own program, a buyer came. And the buyer explained to him that he had that home under agreement when it was on the market prior to COVID.
Oh.
He had 10% down. He has 760 credit in most eyes before COVID. Wow. That was good.
Yes.
Now it fell apart during COVID. Why? Because now the bank wants 25% down and 2.5 years reserved for that house. He needs time. He has great credit. It's not a credit issue. So there are so many sideline buyers like that right now that are great buyers, and sadly enough got pushed to the side with the banks right now. Even though rates are good, as we were talking about off here, it doesn't matter. The bar got pushed so high, it doesn't matter what the rate is if you can't get qualified. So that person's a prime candidate for us, and we're able to help him.
That's interesting. So once you have found the buyer, how do you set this up, right? How do you go through a third-party processing company, or how do you set up the spread, etc.?
Okay, so we're still talking about lease purchase. So you can use a third party. We don't. I have an in-house bookkeeper because we control like 60 of these now, plus all our students. But you can hire third-party escrow companies that'll collect from your tenant buyer, drop the difference in your account after they pay the underlying debt. But we do it ourselves. All the closings, they're not closings, they're signings. But all the signings with the buyer are set up with the attorney for two reasons. One, I want that arm's length. I want them to sit down with an attorney so they can't say they don't know what they're doing. It's fully explained. And two, I want them to know that it's serious, like a closing, because I tell them you're a buyer. We're going to treat you like a buyer. You're going to pay for the things that break like a buyer. And so you're not behaving like a tenant here. You're behaving like a buyer. And that's why we do it all formal.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you mentioned about the software. So do you find these sellers through MLS, or do you have a proprietary software, or how do you?
Two things. No, we do not shop through MLS or realtors. We have a lot of realtors that refer us because they don't know what to do with some of these properties, right?
Right.
But no, we find it through a lead source called MyPlus. It's on our website. But what this does is it takes all the for sale by owners, the expireds, and the for rent by owners, and dumps them into our feed daily.
Oh, okay.
So it's easy. And then if you want to go deeper than that, we have a software white labeled inside Freedom Soft where all of our campaigns, everything's loaded in there, but we'll find the free and clear there or the delinquent taxes there, whatever we want to target. Yeah.
And are you able to do a skip trace using another software or,
No, same software right in there, right in the same platform.
Okay. So same platform has all of that, like skip tracing, and if you need to mail. And do you use phone, or do you also mail out letters?
We don't mail a lot. We might mail, like some of our students might mail 100 postcards in a given month. Unlike wholesalers that spend like sometimes 10,000 a month. Yeah. No, we don't. We have virtual assistants calling those leads and then handing us 7 to 10 of those per week that we can call. All of our students do the same.
Yeah, like hot leads, right?
Yep, and it's cheap. You start doing mailings. I mean, not to mention it's less predictable. I understand some people can predict the metrics, but you're doing a lot of mailings when you get to that.
Oh yeah, you got to do a lot. Yeah, the success percentage is like 1 to 2%. Yeah, and it's
too much.
That's pretty on high side. So can you talk about your best deal you have done so far?
Oh, there's a bunch. There's one in Michigan. We did with a student about a year ago. And the reason and when I'm saying best, I'm talking about profit. Let me first set the scene. So we set up 3 paydays per deal. Every deal has 3 paydays.
Okay.
It's the upfront profit, the monthly spread, and the back end. So you have 3 types of cash flow per deal. Better than one paycheck. They average about 75 grand for us. Our students as high as 250 around the country. We're actually on the lower side. So they're pretty sizable deals. So the deal in Michigan was an expired listing. Gentleman wanted to leave. He's been trying to sell for a long time. Come to find out, he was priced high because he had $195,000 worth of liens on top of the loan, and that put him a little bit above market value. So he can't sell with a realtor without coming out of pocket. So eventually he said, I got to leave. And of course I'm summarizing, but he had to leave out of state. We did some research and we found out that the statute of limitations in that area is 5 years on these liens. We have about 3.5 years left on that, and those 195 disappear. So we just picked up our normal 75 or 80 grand average plus 195,000 just by doing some research on the title and the laws.
Wow, that was interesting. So how does that work, right? So when you signed up, if you can throw the numbers here, so I can understand.
Yeah, let me think through because I'm going from memory. First of all, we bought this home subject to because he wanted to leave. He had no equity. He just said, take the house. So we bought it subject to the existing liens, and I think the numbers totaled about $395,000. So you're at 195 in liens plus about 200 in loans. It's all debt, but the 195 is disappearing in about 3.5 years, I think, roughly.
Oh, wow. And then you still had your spread of about 75 grand.
Well, yeah. Then we went out and sold it for around 449 because it's on a long
Ah,
term now. We didn't want the buyer to cash out before 5 years, right? Because of what we have to
right.
expire.
Yes.
And they were fine with it because most buyers, like, especially if they're stressed about credit, give them more time, they'll take it and work on their credit to be even better
Right.
for a loan down the road.
Right.
So that's what we did. So we had the normal 3-day spread plus that 195.
Okay. No, that's all. So let's talk about some of the gotchas. Any nightmare scenario because of lease option and subject to, and then when you sold it to a buyer, did
Sure, a whole
something
bunch.
like, oh, yeah, exactly. And I always want to talk about the, because the grass is greener on the other side, right? We also got
Yeah.
to see that. So did the bank come after, or maybe there was something else on the lien side? If you have a scenario or two, that would be great.
Yeah, that one there's fine, but there's plenty of scenarios. And let me again preempt this with the statement: these scenarios are always curveballs that I'm going to give you.
Yes.
But there's always a way to pivot if you just understand how to do the transaction. So they're not always terrible. Problem areas would be not pre-qualifying properly your buyer, because if you don't, a lot of investors teach, oh, just throw anyone in there, and if they don't buy it, it's okay, put another buyer in there, get another deposit. Okay,
Right.
that might be okay legally, but morally and ethically, it stinks. So our model is we set the buyer up to win. So if we don't pre-qualify them properly, we might be setting them up to fail because the term's ticking along, they can't get financing, and now I got to perform for my seller or I look bad.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure your buyers are pre-qualified properly. So we have had some earlier mistakes early on, like 8 years ago, where we were so excited to get the deal, we put them in the home, and some students make that mistake.
Right.
And then they didn't get a big enough deposit, or they didn't check deep enough on the credit check and things like that. And it's just a headache 2 years down the road. There's waiting to happen.
So what do you do for pre-qual?
We put them through. It's a similar underwriting process besides criminal and sexual harassment.
Right.
Checks.
Yeah.
It's a similar underwriting process. So they check the front end and the back end housing ratios and FICOs. Now, granted, most need time to improve those. We get that. But we want to see, given their income, if they fix this, and this, can they get mortgage ready, and how long might that take?
I see. Okay.
So that report comes back to us, and then if you're a buyer and the report says, yep, he'll be financeable in 18 months, and my term of my seller is 36, I'm good. We'll accept you if everything else is good. Down payment, everything else. Very important. So we do all that up front before we accept them, so we're not setting them up to fail.
And what about DTI, debt to income ratio?
Yep, they figured that, and they have to sign off on it to say they're not going to screw that up. Like we had a buyer, this is today. I had a California student today, right before this interview, call and say, I got a headache. I said, what is it? He's out in Fresno. He said, well, unbeknownst to me, the buyer was supposed to close on this like this year. They went out and they missed one tiny payment on one of their loans. It might have been a credit card or something, but it was a small payment. It was an oversight. It damaged their credit. Now they need more time.
Oh, no.
So if they sign off on the debt to income, they can't mess it up. They can't go out and run the cards up.
Right. Interesting. So what was your worst deal, and what did you learn from it?
Worst deal. There's a lot of worst, but the worst one would be a house we took. I think it was my son-in-law's first deal, actually. And we took it over without getting the proper disclosures signed, and one of them was lead. So we thought nothing of it. We put a family in there that had 4 kids, and 3 were under the age for the law in that state, and they reported that there was lead in the house. Now, they take the home as is as tenant buyers. But the problem with that is, again, morally and ethically, do we really want to say, no, it's on you? So we had to de-lead that house, and it was $32,000 to de-lead the house.
Oh, wow.
So it sucked up most of our payday 3.
Right. So it's So lead-based paint, if I'm correct, when we are buying, you got to disclose, right? Seller.
Yeah, you got a disclosure. Yep.
Yeah.
Very simple if you do it right.
Right. A lot of times they just put it as don't know, right? And that's when you got to make sure.
Well, here, this one gets even worse. So not only did they not put don't know or NA, they actually disclosed, and it was filed with the town that they did have lead. And we never asked for it, so they didn't offer it.
I see.
We didn't do our homework.
Got it. Yeah, and then these are some of the things you learn as you go, right? You start picking things up. So that's good. Go ahead, please.
No, I said you bet. That's exactly the case.
Right. Yeah,
as you go.
So let's take a quick break, Chris, and after the break, we can go through fire round.
Sounds good.
You're listening to the Wealth Matters Podcast.
The Wealth Matters Podcast.
For more info about what we do, check us out at wealthmatters.com. It's wealth, WEALTH, matters, MATRS.com.
Welcome back to Wealth Matters Podcast. I'm chatting with Chris about how to do real estate on your terms. And Chris, welcome to Fire Round. Are you ready now?
I was raised, I'm going to be.
Okay. So I go through the same questions every week with every guest. I have also added some questions related to COVID-19. So here you go. The first one. Would you be changing any business or investment strategy after coronavirus?
No, actually, we've doubled down in a big way and put more effort into putting more homes under contract because this niche is thriving during COVID.
Oh, that's awesome. Favorite real estate or finance or any other related book, other than yours?
Yeah. Good plug. Thank you. Under the Arches, I think is the name of it, where it goes through the McDonald's story. And the reason I'm relating it to your question is it talks about the struggles of growing a business. It talks about the struggles of finance. It talks about reality. And as a solopreneur doing that, it was an amazing story.
Yeah, no, that's a great book. Any tool or website you recommend or can't live without?
We have found Slack to be extremely helpful for our Wicked Smart community, students, as well as our team. It was one of the best things we did.
That's awesome. And I started using Slack as of last year as well, and it's great.
It's awesome.
Any advice for beginner investors?
Yeah, there's a lot of niches in real estate. There's a lot of shiny objects, right? You and I both know that.
Yeah.
So here's simple advice that would actually work in any business, not just real estate. One is find a niche that you can get behind and get passionate about. And I mean morally, ethically, you just love it in every way. Values. Second, find someone in that niche that's where you want to be success-wise and still active. Because especially with the chaos with COVID, you can't risk having old strategies. You've got to be
right.
And I would add kind of a section to that number two, and that is find someone that's weathered a bunch of storms, because that's important. That's where you learn. And the third is once you do those two, put your blinders on for 36 months and don't deviate. That's where people go astray in real estate. Over here for 6 months, oh, this looks good over here, and it just
that's a golden nugget right there, the last one. And I have done that personally myself. That
everyone has.
No, but I told you up front, right? I'm not smart, right? So I go after shiny objects, right? And then every 6 months, I'm like, okay, this is not working. I need something else. Even though I enjoy real estate, but you are so right that you got to take your time. And don't compare your journey to someone else's, right? Because you don't know what they have been through, right?
Exactly.
That's great. How do you give back?
Actually, my son had an accident in 2003. He's in the business with us. He's doing great. Just let me preempt it with that. But he had an accident back in 2003, and he was at a hospital for rehab called Franciscan Children's Hospital. So every transaction and every new student that comes in, we donate a piece over to them. And that's been going on for years. He was in a coma for a month. The doctor said he wouldn't walk, talk, or eat. And he's doing miraculously well, so that we help him give back. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for that. How can my listeners reach out to you?
Just go to smartrealestatecoach.com. There's a free webinar there. It's content rich. It doesn't cost anything but some time if they don't mind listening to me longer. And then if you want, for your listeners, I'll throw this in. It's probably going to be a lot of time for me, but depending on what the response is. But go to smartrealestatecoach.com/action. And I or my son-in-law, Zach, personally will get on a free strategy call with you for 15 minutes, just as long as they say that came from your show.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for doing that, Chris.
You're welcome.
I thoroughly enjoyed the episode. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, buddy.
Absolutely. Take care and have a great weekend.